Hello and welcome to Dixon Cox with me, Nick Dixon, and TV's Paul Cox. And you may have seen him on GB News. You don't see me quite as much because I have so much going on, but Paul has less going on. So you see him on there all the time. How you doing, Paul?
I'm all right. Got lots going on, mainly GB News.
Yeah. I didn't know I was going to say any of that, but you never know with me.
I don't know what you were saying. In there were some compliments, I think.
It was a mixed bag.
I'm all right. How are you, Nick? I never ask back. I always go,
I know you don't care. You don't care.
I've started to wonder if I do. I do care, Nick. I do. Tell me, how are you?
I'm feeling better today. I felt very bad yesterday because podcast starts at 4:86 in new time. I'm feeling better. Yesterday I felt awful because I'm just too. I hate to say I'm burnt out, Paul, because there are people down mines, but it's been a lot. I did a 4-hour, 38-minute stream the other day, and people really liked it. Check it out on my channel, but with Simon Roberts. But it's like that was a lot, and I did 3 hours today on Academic Agents site. Go and see that. Check that out as well. Check out my interview with Harrison Pitt if you haven't seen it, and my other stream I did yesterday. Basically, I'm doing so much. I'm still doing Lotus Eaters. I'm doing all this stuff, and it finally hit me yesterday. I was like, I can't move. I've got a sore throat. I can't do it. And I've been trying to do everything. And I think I'm worried that GB will slide for me, but it's just, how can I keep everything going? It's very difficult. I'm only one man, Paul.
Just one great man, though, Nick.
Great man, but still, I don't know. I'm trying to do so much. I've just been going crazy with the amount of content, and it's like an egg timer. You know those egg timers, and you, what they're called? And you pour them, and then this is really like my whole life is poured into content. But at a certain point, you've poured everything in, and there's nothing in the top bit left. So really, you need some time.
What do they call them? Did you say? Call them an hourglass, don't they? But depends.
I called it an egg timer. Is that something different?
Same thing. I mean, you use it one times an hour. One times how long it takes to cook an egg.
I always time everything with sand.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, big on the sand.
An egg timer. Well, some people call this an egg timer. You know the one I mean, anyway. I tend to use that. And so I know which hour it is. I get up at the crack of dawn, set that.
and then when it runs out, you go back to bed.
I've also got my sundial if as a backup.
Yeah, you got to have backup, yeah.
This is the kind of banter people hate. They're just like...
Fucking hate it.
Give me the information.
They don't actually. 99% of them love it. You know, it's just the odd one.
It's true.
On YouTube that's paying nothing.
A guy said to me the other day, he goes, just one of the comments, he didn't say it to me, but it was a comment. He goes... Stop the chit chat at the start. I just want the information. It's like, okay, Mr. Autist, do you find this approach works for you very well in life? Is that how you speak to people in life? Is it? Do you get punched in the face a lot per chance? It's like, what's happened to people? And the internet has done this. I mean, the other day I got called from people on the right who didn't understand one of my posts. I got called the F word, the S word meaning a disabled person, the what is the word I got called? There's those two. Oh, the R word meaning a slow person. I got called all three of those. I'm like, they didn't even understand the post, and it's like that didn't even bother me that much because that's just like standard day on Twitter, formerly Twitter. But this one really bothered me about the chit chat. I was like, it's my stream. I'm waiting for people to come on. Stop the chit chat. Just want information. It's like,
what are you supposed to do?
You're banned now forever from the channel, so think about that. I mean, what's wrong? But I just thought, I almost separate the category from psychos on Twitter to just think, what has happened to basic manners that you think it's acceptable to write? No, stop wasting time with the chit chat and just give us the information. It's like,
do the thing I like now.
Yeah, sorry, I don't recall you employing me. When did I? What are my wages? What contract do I have here? Do I have any rights?
How about fuck off?
Yeah. Well, it says here, get fucked. Is that our contract? Is it? I mean, these people, man. If I could, I would obviously
obliterate
Clint Eastwood them. I'd obliterate them. I'd burn your goddamn house down. I'd kill their pets. I would do, I can't say
torture.
YouTube what I do.
A bit of torture, then straight murder.
Like, think about how you speak. What has happened to your manners? Please.
Good
you
grief.
really raised like this. Yeah, unbelievable. Anyway, anywho, as the Americans say.
Thanks for watching.
That's it for today. Today, I thought we'd do some of the stuff I covered on my last stream, but not repeating stuff, but getting your take on it, which is the migrant horrors and the anti-migrant software. I don't think we'd all install that if we could. The tracking on anti-migrant sentiment using terrorist software that was intended for terrorists, and I don't know if you can say any of these words on YouTube, but there we are. That's being used against us. I thought we'd cover that. And then the OBR, a guy from the OBR, though apparently not speaking necessarily in his official capacity, but this guy, Miles from the OBR, David, is that his name? Miles? David Miles. He has spoken out about how immigration doesn't help us economically, which we all know, but it's nice to get it confirmed by the kind of people the government has to listen to normally. So that's sort of like one topic. Then I thought we'd do this reform trans fiasco, where they just can't get their messaging right on the easiest topic ever that's already been won. And then if we have time, maybe we could do this mind the grab thing where Currys are putting out painting on the sidewalk, on the pavements to say, maybe don't grab my phone in lieu of police or crime being stopped. It's like, yeah, you will get your phone stolen, but hey, here's a bit of paint for you. So I thought we might talk about that for a bit of fun at the end. So Paul, so much to get through. The migrant situation has got so out of control that we've just had the Afghans who assaulted a 12-year-old girl, and there was one of them strangled her, which is so unbelievably sick. And that was in Warwickshire. And George Finch, the 19-year-old Reform Council, has been speaking out about it, and the police have been trying to say he revealed things, and he's saying he didn't. So it's all controversial, but the police have been accused of a cover-up. Then you had the 10-year-old who was there was an attempted kidnap in Wilmslow in Greater Manchester. So that also happened. And then you've had the 8-year-old, which was in a guy from Streatham, and it's alleged that this guy raped a child. I mean, you almost think, can we even talk about this stuff on YouTube? I'm not sure we can talk about these things on YouTube even, but they are happening. So it's very hard to talk about, but it's so horrific. And this is, he's pleading not guilty, but that's in court at the moment. But you just go, this is every day now.
Yeah.
This is, it was already intolerable, but this is just next level. And of course, the response from the government is, let's stop the people who are talking about it.
Mental. Yeah, it's a common denominator here, isn't there? Which is people that have made it here illegally and are staying in hotels near the locations where the young girls are getting touched, snatched, and other disgusting things by fully grown men who culturally think of women and girls very differently to us, Nick. And I couldn't give a shit.
Especially white girls who they don't really see as people.
Exactly. I couldn't give a shit about their cultural differences, really. If your cultural differences mean you have a tendency to want to inappropriately touch, snatch, or do otherwise to young girls, then for me, that's not a cultural difference. That's a mental illness. And I'm afraid you need to leave, wherever you are, the town, the country, the continent, maybe even the planet, if it was down to me. But, I'll settle on them going somewhere else on the planet where perhaps there are whole continents full of men that like to touch little girls inappropriately, where they can all stay and hopefully there are no little girls there. But they're not to be here. And the sort of stuff I'm staying now, is almost impossible to say on somewhere like the BBC, Sky News, ITV, Channel 4, whatever you want to talk about, almost anywhere other than independent media and GB News, Talk TV perhaps. So it's an absolute cultural and moral disaster. It's abhorrent. The fact that we find ourselves in this position is abhorrent. And collectively, we are all taking some blame here, and some people are standing up to it, because what we're suddenly start to realise is that we're allowing this to happen. We're allowing this to happen by voting in successive governments that do absolutely nothing they're mandated to do by the electorate. There hasn't been a government for about 20 years that hasn't had the mandate to stop illegal immigration, and none of them have. In fact, as we'll discuss later on, they continue to encourage it. So I'm getting to a point now where I'm not willing to tailor my language. I'm not willing anymore to flirt with the idea that maybe just because the percentage and the numbers are small, that it's okay in some way. Sort of thing that maybe James O'Brien would say on LBC, that you can be considered you should be considered incredibly racist and bigoted if you consider this a problem at all, because the percentages are so small.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
certainly true that legal immigration is so-called is the main thing, but it doesn't mean that. But so then, how many illegal immigrant rapes are acceptable? Is it how many? What's your number? Is what I ask those people. But yeah, it's certainly true that obviously legal immigration is the massive problem, and we
so
don't
here,
shy away from that either.
one is too many. An attempt is too many. And I tell you what, gaslighting the whole country into thinking it's not a problem doesn't help, and that's the victims. You imagine that if you're a father, mother, brother, sister, whatever, of one of these victims at the moment, and all you can hear from certain echo chambers is that this isn't really a big problem. When a small girl within your family has been sexually attacked by a fully grown man that came here illegally and has been fully supported in every way by this government, and then you've got so-called intellectuals in the mainstream media telling you that it's not really a problem. It's just the numbers. And if you think it's a problem, then you're bigoted and you're bad. And that it's not really affecting any, the idea that we're supposed to just go, you can apply it to anything, by the way. I catch myself in my own thoughts. And I was thinking about this. If the same applies to Harold Shipman's victims, I wasn't one of them, and neither was anyone I know. But I know it's bad that the most prolific serial killer, well, in the UK, but possibly the world, was able to kill hundreds of people in hospital. What we just don't worry about it because it's just one man. Whereas in this case, this is hundreds of men, and as you've already pointed out, this is happening on a daily basis. There is a new story every single day, and the problem is when you just keep ignoring it, then it becomes just part of the background noise. Just another illegal immigrant raping small girls. Oh well, what else is the news? And I'm just not, from a personal perspective, as I'm sure you're not either, Nick, I'm just not wanting to accept it anymore. Not at all. We sort
No,
it, and we sort it now.
and it's quite interesting to see the news agency even struggling with it. So John Soper was talking about it, and he even said you can't just call people racist anymore. It was he even admitted that Lewis Goodall was a bit more equivocal, but even they you could see was struggling with it. And I said, unfortunately for them, reality happens to be very right wing, which is how it is, especially at the moment. Reality is getting more. Reality is always right wing, but it's getting more so, and the left is coming up against reality. It's quite interesting to see Ant Middleton's response. He wants to run for mayor of London. He said today, as we record, in reference to the 8-year-old girl we just mentioned, if I were PM, I'd halt all Pakistani visas for 12 months as the crime is so heinous and deport the individual along with his immediate family. Zero tolerance must be put in place along with unmistakable deterrent policies. So he's becoming incredibly based. I mean, I think travel bans for countries that particular have been particularly bad in the grooming is completely reasonable, and take all foreign aid from them, and if they complain, escalate from there. But that's my take.
And what would really happen?
Yeah,
Let's play it through.
nothing.
What would really happen if you said no, no more of that? And we're because we base most of what we do on our own cultural values. Um, we've now applied our own internal cultural values to the rest of the world, and they simply don't. It doesn't work. It doesn't apply to the rest of the world. They don't think about things. We're taken advantage of because of our cultural values, because we're a sort of relatively speaking, entirely low crime in the sense of this type of sexual crime. And by the way, I'm not saying that these type of crimes aren't committed by people within our culture. Not at all.
Now, we
But
always have to hear that. We may as well address that. It's a per capita thing, isn't it? There's all, of course, in a majority white country, there's going to be a certain amount of that.
The point is here: why bring it in? Why bring it in knowing that that's exactly what you're doing? Come look at this. Come in and do this. I mean, it is utterly outrageous. And why? Particularly with regards to illegal immigration, why? What are the benefits to us? Why are you not just turning them around? Why are you not just doing something very serious to make sure that they don't come back? And I've got a whole. If the government are listening and they want some ideas, get into my DMs. I've got 2 or 3 great ideas,
Sure
really good ideas, which I don't want to share now. but I've got some really good ideas of
They're
what.
already in there, Paul, which we'll get onto. They've got this tracking software.
Yeah, they can get.
But yeah, there's a certain strain of people that one, they see no distinction between British people and anyone else. They think the whole world just open, and they think everyone's the same. So they say, well, why aren't you mentioning that the majority, that white people commit the majority, blah blah? It's like, well, one, because they don't disproportionately commit it in massive numbers. Like, what is it? Afghans are 22.5 times more likely to commit sexual assault. That's one. Two, it's a big difference, as you imply, between your own domestic population, where you're going to have a certain amount of crime that's your problem to deal with, versus external problems. It's like if something happens in your own family, you go, that's annoying that my brother's done that, but he's in my family, so I have to try and reckon with it. Depending on what level it was, there might be a level where you couldn't accept it, but that would be your problem. But if it's another family, it's not your problem. And we understand this. So when it comes to the country, we have a certain amount of crime that is our problem, and a certain amount of crime that we don't need, as you're saying, like imported, pointless, needless crime, and it is different. And if you think it's not different, you're a globalist, liberal weirdo. But
Yeah, and this is the problem, isn't it? They believe that everybody else is the same. They believe that all cultures are equal.
yeah,
They
and
have to
there's no
believe it.
borders.
Yeah, mental, absolutely mental. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a lock on your front door.
Right.
Every single person that says this has a lock on their front door, particularly if they live in a city in the UK. They have a
Yeah.
lock on their front door because they don't want people they don't know getting in and doing things to them or taking their things, which can happen. If you know it's going to happen and you leave the door open, you're an idiot.
Right.
That's the problem.
Or,
And
yeah.
and then if you're that idiot and you're saying to the rest of the people outside of your unlocked door, it's not a problem, then you're a double mega idiot of massive proportions. I'm trying not to swear here, so I'm saying words like double mega idiot. But to me, it's a psychosis. It's standing behind an ideology to the point that you would harm yourself and the people within your care. And let's not forget, we are within the care of the government to some degree, okay? Particularly a government like a socialist government like this Labour Party, who believe that they should control large amounts of our day-to-day life.
Yeah, and I've started to call out these people. What is it? This Zoe person who's so
But
awful.
that's just a grift. I mean, that you could just. I tell you what, I tell you what, it's not worth listening to. Again, and this is my litmus test. Turn the volume off and watch the body language.
Oh yeah, they're completely insane. And also,
Zoe
I know
is
they're hired by
smiling
people.
throughout because this plays directly into what she needs. It's her oxygen. She needs the rapes to occur, and she needs the people to complain about the rapes, and then that feeds her grift. That is her oxygen and the way she makes money. Look, that's up to her, but don't take it seriously. It's not serious. It's just it's just deflection.
Well, I just want these people held accountable. She says someone said to her, "You're not affected, so it doesn't matter to her." She's like, "Yeah, you're not affected. I'm not affected." The grand total of people who come into the UK in a small boat is 136,000, and all this. And I'm like, the girls are being 12-year-old girls are being raped and strangled, and you're playing it down with stupid, annoying videos. And I said, "Is there a worse way to spend one's life?" I mean, that's got a lot of likes on Twitter because it's just so disgusting what these people are doing at this point. Why are they doing it? Well, we know why, because of their sick ideology, but. Anyway,
by the way, I think behind the scenes, she and when she sits down quietly at night, she's not actually having those thoughts. Her thoughts are that she doesn't want to be raped. Simple as that. Because and the chance and the probability of her this happening if she encountered one of these people is very high. So she's not going to just go wandering around and making herself available because the statistics are low. Statistics don't help when you're in that situation. They don't help at all.
It's a bit reminiscent of the sort of those liberal girls that went to Morocco and got killed, isn't it? Things like that. There's always like, we want to prove travel's safe. Well, it isn't. So there you go.
So it's a voice worth hearing because I believe in free speech. I think it fascinates me to hear someone like Zoe speak. Absolutely fascinates me. It's thoroughly interesting on many levels, but it's not to be taken seriously. It's not to be taken seriously when.
But it's not to be excused either, I don't think.
I do agree with that, but it will get dismissed, and then you just go, but you know, young girls are being raped and abducted, yeah. Oh yeah, but not, but in small numbers. Oh, okay. It's just in small numbers. It's
You
just in
certainly,
small numbers. So what we're going to do is going to sit down as a committee and decide how many young girls can be raped. Then we've worked out it's 13.7 a year. So just over one a month. Oh, brilliant! Cheers, Zoe. See you later, you fucking idiot.
yeah. No, you're right, and you're right. The argument we are winning. The argument, common sense is winning, and even the news agents, people like this, are on the back foot. But what will change? I don't know. We have a government who they're basically people smuggling criminals at this point. They're smuggling in Afghans secretly. They're smuggling in illegal immigrants who we know will do this to children. So they are just I don't know. I don't like hyperbole when people sort of talk about Blair being a war criminal, but they are basically people. They're the world's biggest people smuggling gang, the British government. Um, Maybe on that note, we'll move on to this piece in the Telegraph. Labour targets anti-migrant protesters with terrorist tracking software. I have talked about it, but we'll get your take. It's basically this software that was intended for use on terrorists is now being used. It comes from Faculty, an AI firm, and it's now being used uh, to spy on us, basically, and look out for anti-migrant sentiment, which is, of course, the main problem is the anti-migrant narratives online that have to be expunged. So they're now using it. I'm just trying to find some of the extra details. But anyway, did you see this piece, Paul?
I
And what
have,
was
yeah,
your?
yeah.
Well, I'll find some more details. What was your take?
So look, what's happening now, unfortunately, is some of these things were designed for very useful reasons. This isn't one of them. Now it's being used for malicious intent by our own government. It's an act upon us. It's an act of terror upon the population because they're trying to control what people are saying and thinking because they don't want too many people to think and say the type of things that we're discussing on this podcast, for instance, because if they do, there'll be unrest. And they're using things within their control. We can't do, by the way, as a citizen, we have to stand back essentially, according to this government, and put all our faith in them, irrespective of what we see with our own eyes and hear with our own ears on a daily basis. Okay, so we've just talked about a very small part of the problem, but a very serious part of the problem, which is sexual assault on young girls because of cultural differences. They're not cultural differences, by the way. They're mental illnesses and they're all crimes. So you didn't say Adolf Hitler had a cultural difference. You say that he was an evil dictator, an authoritarian. Some would. You and I happen to just have tattoos of him on our chest. But
I was going to say,
yeah, exactly. So for me, what they're doing is they're taking something that was actually probably designed for some good to be used to protect us against us. And the reason they're doing it is because we're starting to notice. In fact, it's not just you and I starting to notice now. It's everybody is starting to notice. So because everybody is starting to notice, the problem is getting outside of their control. So they're using these software tools, these algorithms, to look at social media posts, look for keywords, and then have a look to see if it's causing any problem. Now, you and I will definitely have posts on X that get captured by this software, and
most of mine are mine's probably used in the presentation. These are
yes,
some of the things we're looking out for.
likewise. And what I tend to do is say the things I want, and then maybe put something whimsical at the end to try like a veil over it. I'm just being funny. But
I'm joking.
I
We've got to
just
use some different words even on this as well, because you just use the word for the obscure Austrian painter. We've got to not use that word.
sorry.
We
Yes,
can't use the R word probably either. I've heard people
I
say
mean I
grape in
have.
the past. We can't say any of these words.
So, but the thing is, it is right. So I'm aware of that, and I don't want our content to be stopped at all. But I think there's also a responsibility from both of us for people that at whatever level you are in terms of a commentator, and I consider myself a commentator, but at a very low level, and I feel like I also have a responsibility to say things how it is. What do I bring to the discourse if I'm not being honest? And if I'm not being honest because the platforms on which we speak are suppressing us, then we have a much greater problem. So we try and avoid it. And there have been words that have been said on here that will probably go out and won't be too big a deal. But if you keep saying them, you will be you will have a problem. And And it just going back to what we were talking about with regards to software. Had this been used for a subject that wasn't that big a deal, that we all agreed was bad, and we wanted, like, for instance, if you're an Islamist, potential Islamist terrorist, and you're planning to blow up an arena full of children at a concert, and there are certain words that you might use online to try and encourage that to take place in some way. Yeah, we all agree that software should be used. You cannot equate that the other way around and say talking about what's actually happening to children as a result of these people coming to this country, it is a crime in the same way. Making it a crime in the same way means that we never ever fix the problem, which of course is what they want. They think they're going to fix the problem themselves. They want to quiet us down so they can get on with fixing the problem. This one in, one out business.
Well, do they want to fix it? So,
well, I don't. Well,
I say anarcho-tyranny all the time, but this was. I was like, come on, this is taking the piss. You're using terrorist software against your own population for talking about the problem you won't fix. This is the apotheosis of anarcho-tyranny, as I've said before. But this is really is this time. I mean, couldn't be any more clear. Sam Ashworth-Hayes did a really interesting thread about it, and his sort of take was that if they admit how bad immigration has been and the problems it's causing now, legal and illegal, really. But if they admit it's kind of over for them, and if they close a single migrant hotel, it's kind of over for them because they've lost all authority. But see, to me, they've lost all authority either way now. So the interesting thing is happening where you had the local police commissioner in Epping saying, "Hang on, you've got to close this down, this hotel in Epping," and the Home Office is saying, "We're taking care of everything." You know, they just had this bland statement. You had George Finch, I think that's his name, 19-year-old reform councillor who's now in trouble for saying to Warwickshire Police, "We've got to shut this down," or saying to the Home Office, writing a letter saying, "We have to shut down this hotel in Warwickshire, in Nuneaton, I think, isn't it?" So you just go, okay, now that people are rebelling on the local level. I mean, how long will it be before a Labour councillor says, "Hey, we've got to shut this down"? You know, there'll be a problem between the local and the national. But Sam Ashworth-Hayes is saying, well, they'll lose all legitimacy, and I'm saying they'll lose it either way. So they either capitulate and close the hotels, which they have to do, or they don't and they carry on doubling down, and then they get completely obliterated at the next election by anyone, probably Reform, because they just haven't tackled any of these problems. So, but he's saying if they do tackle them, they admit that the whole thing was a massive mistake, and it's over for them in that way.
Well, they do admit there's a problem. They just deny it about 3 weeks later and say we're sorry for the words that we used. I mean,
they want to smash the gangs, but they don't do anything, and
it's a country of strangers, but it's not. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, but they don't actually close these hotels, do they? You haven't seen them close any of the hotels.
No. I mean, once they're open, they tend to be open. The key, as in with most people, with most constituencies with these hotels that try to stop them, is to stop them getting in the first place. We're just, I don't care. I mean, Nigel Farage gets asked where you're going to, where are you going to send Afghans back to? And he said,
yeah. No, that was one of his good ones.
So it doesn't. For me, it doesn't even have to be Afghanistan. They just send them back to France. We've got one huge advantage. We're an island, okay? Send them back to France.
Yeah.
I don't care.
You have to be much tougher with the French. That's all they understand.
Why would we care? If you stop them getting into France, or you stop them getting into Italy, or whatever. The European Union is the problem because they've encouraged this for a decade. Excuse me. They've encouraged this for a decade. So I don't care. It's your problem, right? If your next door neighbour has got a load of wrong-uns living in, and they break into your house, you send them back to their house. You don't just go, "Oh well, you're here now. You might as well stay in. I'll build a migrant hotel in the shed." You send them back. We seem to have lost all ability to stand. We've got no backbone. We've got absolutely no backbone. Who are we afraid of? Who are we afraid of? By protecting. So you don't think that in the long term, that by protecting yourself and your people, that in the end people will respect you? I mean, we are being disrespected by the entire world on an hourly basis. There is no good that comes of this, particularly with illegal immigration. Point to where the good is.
Well, let's just read a little bit of this thread. Ashworth Hayes talks about how it's not really working anymore. We've got these protesters turning up. No one's buying the "Don't Look Back in Anger" stuff anymore. He says there are enough communities experiencing the latest wave of migration firsthand that charming news stories about cricket and tea as engines of integration are being drowned out by what people can see happening to their homes. And understandably, they want the government to stop. This is a problem because it really doesn't intend to. It's too costly to the elite consensus. The alternatives it's willing to offer are put migrants in houses on your street or wave them through for instant approval to live among you. Neither are likely to be popular. That's another thing. The Home Office is now saying, "Oh, we'll sort through all these asylum applications." Like, no, you mean you'll just accept them all? And that's not what we want. Um, and he says policing is a sort of confidence trick. There aren't enough officers to attend simultaneous protests across the country for an extended period. And if they further disperse arrivals, they'll have more sites to watch. So at the moment, the plan is get through the summer, move to Plan B. If the protests succeed in forcing the government to close a single hotel, they'll erupt everywhere. The goal is not to make that concession. So I sort of agree. He says a shorter frame in Britain's state is using the techniques it learned in policing its empire and fighting counterinsurgency actions abroad in a domestic context against its own people in an attempt to manage the consequences of migration and allow the inflow to continue. That is where we are, Paul. What are they doing? They are bussing in left-wing protesters with AstroTurf signs into protest. They are using software to spy on anyone that criticizes it, and they're continuing the inflow, and they're putting the Lucy Conleys in jail. This is all they want to do, and they're not shutting any hotels, so they don't want to solve it. And you're sort of talking as if that maybe they could, maybe they don't, maybe they're it's embarrassing, blah blah. But they're just on the side of the criminal migrants and against the domestic population. Is there any other way to see it?
Yeah, what other crimes would they protect like this? The whole thing's one great crime, okay? You commit your first crime as when you break into the country. And I mean, all this idea that no one owns anything and there's no borders and all this horseshit is for the birds, right? We just ignore that shit when you hear it. It's too late. That's what happens. Okay, we are a sovereign nation, or we once were. We each have our own sovereign spaces. You're sat in yours now. I'm sat in mine now. You're not just going to let any old Tom, Dick, and Harry mooch in and start drinking your Diet Cokes out the fridge and taking a shit in your loo. That's not going to happen, right? So
You'd be lucky if some of these people did take a shit in the actual loo.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't, would they?
And they'd be standing, and they'd be it'd be in the sink, and you'd be like, why can't you use the toilet?
Yeah, well, why are you masturbating in the kitchen? So look, that's all horseshit and for the birds. Okay, so it's
so sorry, Joe. Serious journalists like Alison Pearson listen to this show, Paul, and now she has to deal with that.
Maybe she does just to see what silly people like me think, just to make sure that she keeps herself calibrated the way that she is. Alison, you're doing a great job. Please.
People listen to you, Paul, to get the working man's view. Man on the street.
The man
on the street is talking about masturbating in the kitchen. Right now, with that software, they're making notes of that. The algorithm is saying they're talking about masturbating in kitchens. Like, kitchens, is that a thing now? Is that what people are saying they're doing? That's now being collated, Paul.
What crimes would they protect, though? Let's just say this was
not
incumbent
shoplifting.
Culture.
And not grooming gangs.
Mental. And when you look, what's the common denominator with all these crimes? They're all perpetrated by a certain demographic, right? So they're actually building a larger and larger group of crimes that can be excused to some degree because of who it's being committed by. Okay? Think of the schizophrenia involved to reach that point. It's absolutely bananas. It's bonkers. Okay? You can't just keep doing it. So you would just allow it and allow it and allow. We have to have some level of intolerance. We have to have some level of intolerance. But, just recently, with the 5 pillars or truths or whatever of being a British person, it's been
the 5 values. Yeah.
The 5. Every time I heard it, I thought, where did that come from? The more I read, the more I realised that it was Gordon Brown under Tony Blair in about 2001 with a load of other wet flannels that invented this because they were given the task of trying to identify what British values are. These are entirely manufactured and less than 25 years old.
Oh, yeah.
These are... Go on, Nick.
No, I was going to say, if you look at the graph you know those graphs of when does this term start being used in internet searches and so on. It goes 1997, it goes whoosh, and it's just or sometime around there. It wasn't even said. No one
No,
talked about British
and I'd
values.
forgotten about this entirely. And I thought, well, where does this come from? Why was I taught it in school? I mean, did, did my parents mention it? Did teachers mention it? No, it was just Gordon Brown and his mates whilst Tony Blair was running the country. And you're like, shit, right? Okay, so it's nothing. I mean, they're all, it all looks good on paper, and sure, so what? I mean, you can you can write these things down. We don't apply them, don't we? We don't. No one checks anybody when they get off the boat, right, guys? Just guys, obviously. These are the five things that are most important to us. What do you think? They can't even answer. So, where's my phone? Where's my hotel? Got any girls to leer at?
It's a sign of where we're at. In the stream I did on Academic Agents channel just today, Simon Roberts had an interesting take up about hypernormalization. We're doing this documentary, Hypernormalization, Adam Curtis. That was a term coined by this Soviet writer. He's still alive. He's called Alexei Yurchak. Anyway, some of the signs are paradoxical stability and decay, which is like ritualized language and behavior. He cited British values as one of them. Things are decaying, so you just use these empty slogans. Detachment from meaning, things like diversity is our strength, normalizing the abnormal, anarcho tyranny, living dual lives, the way that people take on more and more these anonymous identities on the internet, or even anonymous ones, like even what we do and so on, the kind of dual life of like you have a sort of life online, talking about politics and so on, but you're kind of ghettoized, or you're not allowed to talk about it, or what words can we say, and so on. And then he mentioned sudden shock, which was the hypernormalization, pretending everything is normal, which people like Starmer are adept at, or not actually very good at. This is why he's got such bad approval ratings. But that means that we imagine things are going better than they are, or the average person does, or it's seen like that way. But then there's a sudden shock. He cited the Berlin Wall. He said maybe Brexit, but the Berlin Wall was a great one. It's like, oh, it's over. So I'm wondering, what will our sudden shock be? Will we move toward, is it Epping? Is it something like that? Is it a much bigger thing? Is it some sort of attack? Someone has enough and attack something, or is it multiple protests at once across the nation? And it'll be covered up as well as it is. We saw the Manchester protest was barely covered, or it was a massive protest. The protests are happening now across the nation, and they're kind of covered up. But at a certain point, will there be a tipping point, or not even a tipping point, a sudden shock, and people go, oh, and the thing kind of is over, or it explodes in some way. Let's see.
Well, unfortunately, we're not there yet, and that tipping point will be something very serious. Southport wasn't a tipping point. Southport basically turned the tables in Keir Starmer's favour. He managed to engineer it so that he could send people like Lucy Connolly to prison for 3 years.
Yeah,
It
no,
was
it's not
not.
gone as well as you think, because Lucy
No. But
Connolly
it
is
hasn't.
so.
It's that. Yeah, I agree, and hopefully she'll be out very soon, and she should never have been jailed, of course. But it wasn't a turning point. It wasn't the tipping point.
No.
It's going to take several of those, or one massive thing, and I dread to think what it is. I dread to think what it is. You think just looking at Tommy Robinson and what happened at St Pancras allegedly, he gets attacked, he defends himself, and the focus that's been on that has been incredible. I mean, he's been arrested again, and he's just, he's in all sorts of trouble for defending himself, and much more focus on that than there would be on all these. By the way, all these kind of grapes that we've talked about, these assaults that we've talked about, we're talking about it. There's not being talked about on the 10 o'clock news, right? The Tommy Robinson arrest will be talked about on the 10 o'clock news. So they are still shaping the narrative, okay? Because Tommy bad, this is what he's done, look how dangerous he is. Illegal migrant, nothing. That's not bad. That's not dangerous. We're not going to talk about that. Don't talk about that. That's bad, okay? So when we start to see maybe more and more people come round to the idea that what's going on is a crime against us, our culture, our humanity within this country, then we'll start to see those tides turn. We're not there yet, and it's going to take something absolutely massive.
Yeah, just on Tommy, he says, yeah, he was defending himself. He was already going to leave the country anyway. He chose to speak to the police himself. Just things like that. It's quite funny because Jonathan Pye was talking trash about it, and Tommy called him out, and then Pi actually deleted it, which was quite interesting. Um,
The
yeah,
point
yeah.
is that's synonymous, right? I don't know what happened in St Pancras.
No, I just wanted to get some of the other side out, so we
Yeah,
don't.
and you're absolutely right to do so because that's the truth, right? That's the truth, and that's what should come out. But the point is, um, in in the architect of the narrative, the mainstream, the Keir Starmers, the government, the blob, they found their devil, and their devil happens to be Tommy Robinson at the moment. Okay, so they all the time that they can spin the tale that this is the devil, this is the bad person, i.e., the one person who for the longest period has stood up and noticed. All the time that's perpetuated, we will be ignoring the other stuff. We will see at some point that that story disappear to some degree, and the bigger news be about what the migrants are doing to children. And when we see that, but I dread to think what it's going to take. Because if you think about the Manchester Arena attack, if you think about Southport, if you think about any of the 10, 11 Islamist attacks across the country, Westminster Bridge, London Bridge, um, and, endless things that you can think of, Germany, for instance, all the things that have gone on in the Scandinavian countries, they haven't turned the tide. All they've done is woken more and more people up. What on earth, given the things that we know, is it going to take? I mean, the best we can hope for is that there are more and more of these type of things, and it's the straw that breaks the camel back. Oh, God forbid! I hate that I'm saying it, but if it takes one thing, how big has that thing got to be? Because I'm really worried what that's got to be.
Well, when I say the one thing, so I'm not necessarily talking about some hideous crime that sets things off. And by the way, on Southport, I've said it before, but voters who moved from Labour to Reform were aware of his treatment of Southport, Starmer's handling of Southport, and had a negative opinion of it. So it's not true that he handled it well, as the mainstream media said. They lost votes because of it. So he didn't handle it well, but he semi got away with it, as you say. Um, I'm not talking necessarily about a big crime. I'm talking about perhaps the Berlin Wall. That was a point of the people had enough. It was a sort of preference cascade. Everyone spoke to each other and went, "Hang on, you think this is nonsense as well?" That's definitely happening, or as even you could say has even happened. But the regime, though, will never back down. As Sam Ashworth said, they will never back down. So the only way it's going to change is if a new elite gets in. If somehow Rupert Lowe takes over, Corbyn could take over. I don't know what's going to happen in that situation. But someone, I don't know if it's you're sort of talking as if they're going to change tack at some point and say we have to deal with this. I don't think this regime will ever deal with it. It's funny you talk about manufactured devils. Tommy there again reminded of this film Hypernormalization because Curtis's claim, at least, is that Syria were almost certainly responsible for these certain crimes, but it was too complicated to deal with and too hard. And they said, "Oh, no, it's Gaddafi in Libya that's done it. It was completely made up." And it was just easier for them to create Gaddafi as this villain. Really, didn't have much influence at all. Then later, in the WMDs, which I never bought into, and the nonsense about the Iraq War, they needed a victory because that was going so badly. They said, "Oh, Gaddafi now has given up his WMDs, and that's a great victory." He never had them anyway, but he agreed to then. In wrestling, it's called a heel turn, but I guess it's the opposite of a heel turn. It's turning back to babyface. He went from the arch villain to the hero. Both times it was fictitious. So Tommy is a fictitious villain because you look at his positions. What are they? Neocon, neoliberal. He believes that he's very pro-Israel and he's very pro-multiracialism, and he gets attacked constantly from the right because he's actually not very right wing. He gets called the far right activist still on Channel 4 and so on. He's not really far right in any of his beliefs. Of course, he has a particular critique of Islam, but so did Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, and a number of other people on the left you can name. So he's the devil, as you say. They've made up a devil. When are they going to switch to the real devil? Kind of never. That's what we see with this hyper normalization. Kind of never. They'll never admit any of this. The question is, when does it get so bad that somehow something happens, a counter elite does take over, and Middleton takes over? And when is that day? I don't know how it happens because it's so hard to see at the moment. Does it happen with Reform winning? But we basically know. Sorry, some of my listeners, but basically everyone in my audience knows their kind of fate, which we'll get onto. So they won't do it. So then what? Who knows? Do we have Corbyn or do we have something actually right wing? I don't know. Just some
Can you
thoughts.
imagine Corbyn and Sultana? I
I
mean, it would
know.
give us work forever.
Well, I
But
said that after this Reform trans thing, which maybe we'll get onto, I said I don't know which I don't know who to vote for, Corbyn or Farage, both far left with charismatic leaders. I said Corbyn or Reform, Corbyn Party or Reform. I messed up my own tweet, but now I've said we'll do this OBR thing, so I feel like I have to do that as promised before
Sure.
we get to that, which is, even though we might run over, but it's serious problems with UK's reliance on migration, warns OBR official. I actually looked into it, and he had said similar things back in February 24, but it's getting noticed again. I think he's come out with a new essay on it, David Miles, and he's an executive at the Office for Budget Responsibility. And he said that we need to prioritise getting Britons into work instead of relying on overseas workers. And his basic point is a few things, but you bring in these people, it's very much like Dr. Paul Morland has said, who's talked about demographics a lot. You bring in these people, it's a Ponzi scheme because eventually they age anyway. You bring them in now. Miles says they'll end up costing us 1.55 million each, I think. And it's a complete short term strategy. It doesn't work. Here you go. The OBR now calculates that each low wage migrant, assuming they stay in Britain, will eventually cost the UK taxpayer 1.55 million, as the pensions and benefits they will be paid outweighs the taxes they pay during their lifetime. Even a migrant on the average UK wage will end up costing the state a net 405,000. This is from Liam Halligan's piece on this. So that's one aspect, and he points out if you get people who are on benefits, all the ridiculous number of people already in the country on benefits, you have a double whammy. You save the money on benefits and you gain the money from their productive work. Whereas if you bring in people to allegedly do productive work, at best you only get one side of that. So it's a big change. The population that he points out grows rapidly. Services collapse. We can't keep growing at this rate. We need to get people back into work. Um, to do this method requires an ever growing population, he points out. So it's a complete Ponzi scheme, it's a complete short termism, can't work. And Starmer alluded to this, didn't he, in his press conference a while ago? And Peston said to him, what about the economics of it? And Starmer said it was a myth that, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said it's a myth that it helps the economy because it doesn't. All these people are net drains. He didn't say these exact words, but he admitted it was not right. So even though he said that in that one press conference, they don't seem to have updated their software to take that in. But now, very serious people are saying this is not working economically. Even aside, even because I would say, even if it works economically, you've destroyed our culture, and so I wouldn't accept it anyway. But it's not even working economically.
Yeah, I've made some quick notes as you were talking there. I've read the story, and it's, I don't want to reduce it too much, but if you reduce it down to sort of cost to benefits ratio, so if you look at this like it was a business plan in some way, at no point does any of this add up. The initial cost is 1.55 million per head. Okay, so and then in the long term, it costs the country £400,000 per person, right? So economically, it doesn't. Whatever it gives the economy, it takes away more.
I don't. Those aren't long term versus short term. Those are if they stay unskilled versus low wage versus even if they got to the average UK wage.
Well,
one of them costs 1.55 million.
So the unskilled cost 1.55.
Yeah.
And the more skilled, basic skilled, by the sound of it, we aren't talking doctors and engineers as we're
average UK wage ends up costing 405k.
Okay, so it comes down by £1 million, but it's still a cost to the country, right? So therefore, the economy doesn't grow; the economy shrinks
over the long term.
So it shrinks either by £1 million per head or £500,000 per head. Let's say that. Now, you then look at what are the other costs? Like you've already said, the erosion of our culture. So we're not asking anybody to come in and assimilate at all. Now, I don't. What I really don't want to do, and at this, up until very recently, I had no problem with legal migration. By the way, if people did come in and contributed to our culture, they contributed to our economy. They wanted to be part of what Great Britain once was. I've never had a problem with that. But the problem that's with what's happened now, I feel that we need to put a plug in it. Stop. Bam. If you've got a flood, you stop the flood. You just stop the flood and enables you to create the fix. Okay. So the cost financially is considerable. The cost culturally is considerable against a backdrop of an economical black hole, which went from an actual OBR 9 billion to a manufactured Reeves 22 billion, to a further manufactured Starmer Reeves 50 billion, black hole, just in the news today. We are not fixing that with these people. So on all possible fronts, cultural, financial, and economical, broader economical benefits, they do not fix the problem. Alongside that, they also anger the incumbent culture terribly because they are anti our culture. They don't believe in the protection and rights, basic rights of women and children. In many cases, I'm not saying all of them, by the way, but any of them. I don't care what the percentage is. If there's one of them on the boat, then the whole boat goes down. All right, I don't care. So, at no point is there any benefit, and the cost is astronomical. The cost is out of this world, and it's not non-recurring. It's recurring year in, year out. It goes up with inflation. That black hole gets bigger. The culture gets eroded, to a point that we don't have the culture that would support a prosperous economy. So it's over. It's over. It's been over for some time. The only way that any benefit can come from this would be to stop it. And that turning around will be like turning a freight ship around. By the way, if you stopped it all today, you would still have a massive clear-up problem. Yeah. Massive. You would then have to... So what you'd have to do is stop any form of migration now. Bam. And that, by the way, is a disaster in itself. Because you imagine the good people that get chucked out with that bathwater. Stop. Bam. Then you look at who's here undocumented. Millions of them. First of all, you got to tackle that, and then let's just say it's possible. You then send them away. Then you look under that, and you're back to the problems that you maybe had 20, 25 years ago. Who's committing crimes? Who's claiming benefits that shouldn't be? Who's outstayed their welcome? Who is no use to us anymore? Whatever it might be. I know these all sound like harsh terms, but what do we want? Do we want to prosper? Because if we do, we've got to start looking at this in a hardline way. It's as simple as that. If that's right wing or whatever, so be it. Who cares, right? If you look after the majority by dealing with the minority, it's still a good thing. You don't want this cancer. You just don't want it.
Yeah, and there's a few things I'd add as well. Just on the numbers, you said in the past, it was more reasonable when you were talking about tens of thousands. But look at this. The population of England and Wales, this according to the ONS, grew by more than 700,000 in the year to June 2024 to nearly 62 million. This was the second biggest annual jump since records began in 1949 and only beaten by the 800,000 rise in the population during the year to June 2023. So those 2 years were obscene, Boris wave stuff. And these increases both stem from record rises in net migration. So Liam has talked about this, Halligan, on... And we love Liam. He was on this show, not this show, my other show, the interview one, and he was speaking to Julia Hartley-Brewer about it. But one thing Liam even says, I guess he's being moderate, but he says, he talks about the pace of change. Now, to me, it's immoral to replace the people anyway. It doesn't matter how gradually, but obviously the pace has rendered services broken and has been impossible and has created all the rage you're talking about. But even if it is done slowly and carefully, what, you're going to raise us slowly? So I'm not up for it anyway. Then bringing in this amount of people anyway, I suppose the question of if you slow the pace enough, in effect, there are far fewer immigrants in the country because they, I don't know, over their lifetime. I'd have to look at the maths of it all, but maybe the pace does amount to the same thing as having fewer in the country. But I don't even like that term pace because it's like, oh yeah, we want it just slow. It's like, no, we just want to stop this completely at this point, as you've said.
We have to stop it, by the way. It's not even like I'm being quite reductive when I talk about this because I feel like we have to be, right? So I bring it back to, instead of a country or a continent, it's somebody's home, it's somebody's family, it's how you would, I'm trying to personalise it so that people, not the people that are listening and watching to this, they're already, we're preaching to the choir, so that people understand why people are so angry about it. But you have to reduce things down in order to properly understand this is a cancer. If this was a body and this cancer was attacking the body, you would do everything within your power to stop it, or you would accept death. Simple as that. Those are the two options. And if you are still at a point where you think continuing on the journey that we're currently on hurtling towards the oblivion isn't going to lead to the death of something, then I don't know where you've been. And you know what? I'm quite envious of you because you've got this ignorant bliss that many of us would absolutely love at the moment.
Yeah, you're
But
insane, or you want to, for some reason, destroy our country and
yeah,
destroy the West.
I talk about
Which is
this
also insane.
sort of obtuse behaviour because there are definitely people I know that are totally uninterested in politics, totally uninterested in what's going on around them because they've got so much going on with their lives and they can, it doesn't, according to them, in their experience, it doesn't affect them. It's like when people say, I'm not interested in politics, it doesn't affect me. Well, of course it does. Right the way down to your bin collection. It does affect you, okay? And, when your child gets ill and can't get the treatment, you don't automatically, by the way, blame the illegal immigrants. What you blame is the people that sit behind the system, that have allowed the system. And this is what the OBR chap was talking about. I forget his name, David Miles. It's what David Miles was talking about. The system can, and we've said this flipping hundreds of times, the system can no longer cope. The system is built for X amount of people, and we have got X plus Y. It's as simple as that. Okay? It cannot cope. And we do not have the growth within our economy to grow the system to deal with X plus Y. So at some point, you either have to start killing off old people,
Well,
or
they've got plans for that.
yeah, or you have to stop young people being born,
They've got plans for that.
or you have to tax people to death.
They're doing that as well.
So, not being a conspiracist, these things are already happening because it's much, much easier to deal with those things, whether you are doing it directly and deliberately or not. It's much easier to do those things than it is to deal with the problem. We are turning the other cheek the whole time, and it's time we stood up and fought. It's simple as that. Like the coward of the county in Kenny Rogers' song, it's time to shut the saloon door and beat the shit out of them. This is what we got to do now, okay? It's over. We have to do it. And we're not fighting illegal immigrants. We are fighting the people that allow illegal immigration. Simply allow the cancer to grow. We have to fight back. There is nobody in power in Westminster, really, that is tackling the biggest issue. Now, if you listen to Zoe and James O'Brien and people like that, they'll tell you this isn't the biggest issue. They'll tell you it's one of the smallest issues, and we have all these other issues. But you can almost directly correlate that issue with any of the other issues they might wish to talk about. Okay? So we have to tackle the cancer. It's over.
Yeah. Well, illegal immigration, the numbers are, as we said, relatively low. But I don't think anyone could claim legal immigration isn't the issue. But yes, you're right, Paul. Stop turning the other cheek. We've got to get pagan on their asses. I don't know what we're going to do because all we can do is talk about it because it's only elites that can change things. We need a counter elite that changes it. I don't know how that's going to happen.
I talk to people that I know about this, and they say, why don't I do more, for instance? Genuinely, people who admire me, why don't I do more? I've got a platform. And of course, immediately my reaction is to poo-poo. I don't have a platform. Who am I, really? I'm just some, jolly curly hair, a chubby funster who goes on GB News or makes people laugh, hopefully, from the stage or comes on podcasts like this and flaps my gums for an hour or two. But they're right. They're the same as the mums that are in Epping. We all have power. Okay, now I'm sounding like, wolfy. Like I'm some sort of communist or socialist upriser. But we all have power. And we can do more. And you and I probably could do more. But the trouble is, if you step out of line, you get in trouble. You get in trouble. And that trouble could mean a prison sentence. That trouble could mean a loss of earnings, a loss of your home. The control mechanism is there. So we're either willing to do maybe what, and I'm going to bring his name back into the fray again, what Tommy Robinson has done with his life, okay? Whatever you might think of him, and there are problems that I have with maybe some of the ways that Tommy Robinson goes about things, but nobody can deny that he has absolutely sacrificed his life for this mission, right? It's been it's broken down his family life. It's left him in a very insecure position. He's a target for some of the most powerful people in the country, if not the world. Okay, now how many among us are willing to put ourselves in that position? I've never done it. Have you done it, Nick? Are you willing to do it? Are people listening to this willing to do it? And when we talk about what is it going to take, it's going to take many, many more people with that ambition to stop it.
Well, we've all got our role to play, and we're all. I think it was Harris. I can't remember if it was Harrison Pitt or David Starkey I was talking to because they're both podcasts. One of them's out, one of them's coming out. Said that we're already doing something by talking about it, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
And we're raising awareness, and then you never know if there's a few thousand people listen to this, which they do. Then what do they go on and do? So there is something there, but ultimately, see, because I believe in elite theory, I only believe that the people can but what the people can do is remove their tacit consent, and that's what's happened now. When that happens, the elite can't function for long. And that's what we are seeing. This elite is basically done. It's limping on as a sort of zombie, but it's basically done. And what I'm interested to see is who comes next. Is there anyone that can come in and solve it? And when will that happen? And how harsh will it have to be? And how can it happen? You know, I don't know. I won't say that. I was going to say something too controversial. Let's see how it happens. But at the moment, we have an elite that's wildly, wildly out of touch with the majority, and it's becoming so obvious. It's a new, interesting time in that way. It's becoming undeniable.
We do have some hopefuls waiting in the wings, but you and I have some grave doubts about those hopefuls because, as we'll probably discuss in the next section,
Yes.
they aren't behaving in a way consistent with what's required for change.
Well, perfect link. So, because we've already done an hour without getting onto it, we'll do that reform on the trans issue. We'll do that in the paid section on nickdixon.net, where we have a large numbers, many hundreds, many people, great people. And we got a lot of that. It's amazing, really, how many, because I speak to some people with a similar size subset to mine, and they only have a few paying subscribers. We've got hundreds. And thank you very much for those people. And someone even posted the other day, I would happily pay more for this. So at the moment, it's only a fiver. So, or 50 quid for the year, which is £4.17 a month. So go on to nickdixon.net for the full content. As always, you get the full version of my interview with Harrison Pitt I just put out, and you'll get the full version of this with Paul today and many other treats. A podcast I just did with Jamie Franklin that's only for subscribers. So we do all that kind of thing on nickdixon.net. And also go to @Paul Comedy. So for the people who are listening for free on the apps and watching on YouTube, thank you very much. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We'll see you very soon. Goodbye.